It's Enemy Sidelines presented by Microsoft. Joining me today, my good friend Ben Volin, who I seem to talk to every single year when the Patriots and the Texans face each other. He's a senior writer for the Boston Globe. And Ben, I had a list of questions I was going to ask you, but we've got to get to the Stephon Gilmore news first. Obviously, the Patriots and Gilmore parting ways. You know, what does that sort of mean for the organization, and how much of that is a surprise?
Yeah, never a dull moment here in Foxborough. Bill Belichick taking everyone by surprise. And now the Patriots are going to be parting ways with Stephon Gilmore. And I'm surprised they spent a ton of money in the offseason, over 175 million fully guaranteed. And yet, for whatever reason, they couldn't find a way to come to a new deal with Stephon Gilmore. And I think they've figured out that it's better to simply move on than to bring him back part of the team, which I'm a little confused about. It's hard to say that the Patriots are going to be a better football team without Stephon Gilmore this year. Now they definitely need the salary cap space. They only have about $2.5 million in cap space. I don't think they have enough money to cover all the bonuses and things that they're probably gonna have to pay out at the end of the year. And they do save more than $6 million by releasing Gilmore now. So that gives them some breathing room, save more than $6 million by moving on from Gilmore. So that gives them some breathing room, but I'm certainly surprised and that they weren't able to get more for him. He's still an elite player, I think, only 2 years removed from being Defensive Player of the Year. The secondary has played pretty well. Jalen Mills, a newcomer, has been a nice addition. J.C. Jackson, Jonathan Jones. They've been solid at cornerback, but Gilmore's a great player, and I'm surprised that the Patriots couldn't find a way to keep him in the fold this year.
Yeah, and he was on PUP this year, so it's not like it would have affected Sunday's game because he had not played this year so far, correct?
Right. Gilmore was not going to be playing this Sunday. When you're on the PUP list, physically unable to perform, you have to sit out for the first 6 games minimum. So the Patriots had a couple more weeks to figure out if they could get more for Gilmore, but they were also paying him about $400,000 per week to be on PUP, and they needed the cap space. So I think they just decided to rip off the Band-Aid now. But he would not have played this week. But you'd think towards the end of the season that the Patriots are hoping to be playoff contenders. You'd think they could use a cornerback like Gilmore. Instead, they've moved on, and now he has a chance to go play for a top contender, whether it's joining Tom Brady in the Bucs or going to Kansas City, maybe Baltimore, maybe Carolina, New Orleans. I think Gilmore is going to have a lot of options because I do think he's probably healthy enough and should be able to contribute right away.
All right. Well, I think the big story for Sunday's game, 2 rookie quarterbacks and Mac Jones and Davis Mills facing off. And Mac Jones, that Sunday night performance against Tom Brady and the Bucs, he seemed to really bounce back nicely from his performance the week before against the Saints, where he threw 3 interceptions. What did you learn about Mac Jones sort of playing under the bright lights in such a big game? And I think you had to be living under a rock if you did not know those two teams were playing each other, because I mean, I'll be honest, Ben, I had Patriots Buccaneers fatigue by Sunday morning. We'd been hearing about it all week. So it was a very highly publicized game for the rookie, and he came out pretty well in it, even despite it being a loss.
Yeah, I can't imagine if you didn't have too much rooting interest. I'm sure just being inundated by the Brady and Belichick talk got to be a little much last week. Mac showed that the spotlight is not going to be too big for him, that he can handle it all. And that shouldn't be too surprising. He played at Alabama and played in the biggest moments, and certainly was in a fishbowl type of environment in Tuscaloosa. But I give Mac a lot of credit. He went toe-to-toe with Brady. I think showed a lot of toughness, and that's been throughout the first 4 games. He's been getting crushed. He's been taking a ton of hits and sacks, and he's been bouncing back up and hanging in there in the pocket, making the reads, making some good throws. You'd like to see him push the ball downfield a little bit more. He does kind of settle for shorter throws and check downs, and maybe doesn't hold the ball as long as he should as far as looking downfield. His completion percentage is great. I think he's 7th in the league at 70% right now, but I think he's 26th in yards per attempt. So he's not really pushing the ball downfield. But, he's a rookie. This offense is a work in progress with all these new pieces. The offensive line has not helped him. They've been kind of a mess in front of him. And now yesterday, the Patriots put their left tackle and their left guard on the COVID list. So we'll see what kind of protection Mac Jones has for this Sunday against the Texans. He's been solid. He's been, I think, clearly the best rookie quarterback. But the Patriots need him to not just be good for a rookie, but to be good overall. They need to score more points. They've only been getting 1 to 2 touchdowns per game. They need to start turning more of these drives into touchdowns. But certainly Mac is off to a good start, and I think the Patriots feel comfortable about what they have with him.
Yeah, it seemed like they were comfortable with him early because, we talk about the Gilmore news, but that Cam Newton news surprised everyone as well. It seemed like Bill Belichick gave his vote of confidence to Mac Jones pretty early on. Now, you cover the team every single day. Was that surprising, or do you think that there was something in Mac Jones where Belichick felt like, this is going to be his guy? Because we know he doesn't like to commit to rookies too early, too soon, right?
Well, so I was surprised that they made the move. I just thought by bringing back Cam Newton and continuing to have him, serve as the starter during practice, he was always taking reps first. He was always starting the games. I just thought they wanted to bring Mac along slowly, and what would be the harm in sitting him a little bit and letting him take it all in. Now, that said, you watched camp, and it was clear that Mac was doing very well, that the coaches were impressed with him, and that you could see the confidence building every day, not just in what Mac had in himself, but with his teammates and coaches around him. I remember there was one practice, he hit probably 15 or 16 passes in a row, finished off a drive with a touchdown. The place is going wild. Josh McDaniels is giving him high fives, and Belichick's giving him high fives, and you could just see the team really responding to Mac. So, that said, not surprising that the Patriots decided just to go ahead and get the future started now. But I still was surprised, and I think there's an argument to be made that Cam Newton wasn't really given a fair shake. And, the Patriots did start off 1-3. Mac has been up and down. The Patriots, I don't think they showed a lot of faith in Mac Jones with a couple decisions last week. Belichick kicking a field goal instead of going for it on 4th and 3 late in the game. If you're going to play the rookie quarterback and have, make that decision, you've got to show more confidence in him than playing for field goal and field position. So Mac clearly, I think, won the respect of his teammates during training camp, but I think even a lot of them were surprised that Cam Newton was kind of unceremoniously released. I think, what was the harm in letting Cam start right away? But clearly Mac Jones has the attention and the respect of the locker room.
I think what was impressive in Sunday's game was the lack of rushing yards, the lack of a run game for Mac Jones, because here, with the Texans, with Davis Mills, we talk about getting the run game going, and it's been a struggle for the Texans as well. But I don't think I've ever seen 8 carries for -1 yards. You mentioned the injuries to the O-line. How much of that has been in effect? I know they had to put James White on IR too, but what do you make of the run game and the Patriots struggles with it this early?
Yeah, they had 8 carries for -1 yards against the Bucs, and it was just the 4th game in the Super Bowl era in the last 52 years that a team finished with negative rushing yards. So that's obviously not sustainable. I give Josh McDaniels credit. They were just running against a brick wall. The Bucs have been the number 1 rush defense now 2 straight years, and this year they're top 5 again. With Vita Vea, that's just a brick wall. So no sense in trying to do something where you're not going to go anywhere. And instead they spread it out and put the ball in Mac's hands, and he completed over 75% of his passes. So I thought he did a nice job. The Patriots, one of their big offseason moves was they got Trent Brown back from the Raiders. He was an all-pro for the Patriots back in 2018. He was supposed to lock down right tackle. He got hurt in the first half of the first game and has not been back since. They've had to use backups at right tackle, neither of whom have played that well, and they've had to slide more help over to their side, and so that affects everyone else on the line. Now left tackle Isaiah Wynn and left guard Mike Onwenu, they're on the COVID list this week, and neither had been playing that well. Wynn's given up several sacks, committed some penalties this year. Onwenu got benched last week for Ted Karras after giving up 2 straight holding penalties. So the line has just been, and it's not talent, because these are the guys that have been around David Andrews, Shaq Mason, Isaiah Wynn. They've won some Super Bowls with the Patriots, but the communication has just been all off. The Bucs had several plays where they had unblocked blitzers screaming right at Mac Jones. Just no one picked them up. So the offensive line has just been a mess right now. They might be down 3 starters on Sunday against the Texans. So that's going to be the Texans' chance, is to get in Mac Jones's face, cause some turnovers like the Saints did a few weeks ago, create some field position that way. So definitely that's an area of concern for the Patriots, is their offensive line.
Yeah, and you mentioned the right tackle. They traded Marcus Cannon to the Texans this offseason, and he's starting at right tackle for the Texans. So certainly something to keep an eye on, that Patriots O-line. Let's talk about the defense. It was really impressive against Brady and the Bucs. And so far, they've allowed just 185 passing yards per game, which ranks 4th in the NFL. What makes that secondary so effective? And did they do anything differently against Brady and the Bucs that made them even more so?
Yeah, I think the key against Brady and the Bucks was they definitely did not blitz. I counted only 6 blitzes on 44 passing plays, and they flooded the middle of the field. They dropped all their linebackers. They took away the short crossers. They know Brady loves to work the middle of the field, the short portion. So they just hung back. They begged him to give it to Leonard Fournette. They begged him to check it down. And then they swarmed to the football. And yeah, you hold Tom Brady and the Bucks to 1 touchdown and 19 points. That's usually good enough to win. So the defense, I definitely think, did their job the other night. It's just a very veteran secondary. The cornerbacks have been playing very well. The safeties have been excellent. Devin McCourty still getting it done back there, kind of the leader of the defense, playing center field. Adrian Phillips and Kyle Duggar, 2 real athletic guys who are kind of those hybrid linebacker safety types. They're safeties who play closer to the line of scrimmage. So the Patriots just have a lot of speed and a lot of versatility in their secondary. And up front, linebackers and defensive ends who maybe aren't great one-on-one pass rushers, but guys who can do kind of all 3 down players. They can rush, they can drop. You're not quite sure who's going to be coming on any play between Matthew Judon, who's been an excellent pickup so far. Dante Hightower is back. Kyle Van Noy is back. It sounds like they might be getting Jamie Collins back as well. I think they're working on a deal with him right now. So they've got some good versatility all up and down the defense. And I think they're top 5 right now in points allowed. They had a huge game against Zach Wilson and the Jets, forcing 4 interceptions. Nice performance against Brady and the Bucks. Definitely the defense is the strong suit of the Patriots right now.
Speaking of defense, I was looking, they don't have a listed defensive coordinator. I know Matt Patricia is back on staff. What about his role and how much is he involved in the defense? And is it Belichick that as defensive coordinator over there?
So the way they split it up is it's still Bill Belichick's defense, and he's making the big picture decisions. But they leave the play calling, actually, like the individual play calling goes to his son, Steve Belichick, who's one of the linebackers coach. And I believe Gerard Mayo, the other linebackers coach, has some input as well. But Belichick is still the man responsible for the defense, and his lieutenants are just kind of carrying out the orders, I guess. As for Matt Patricia, he's the new Nick Caserio. Nick Caserio was Bill Belichick's right-hand man for 20 years, running the personnel department. But then on game day as well, Caserio was sitting in the press box, had his binoculars on, helping spot the ball. Okay, it's 3rd and 6 at the 34-yard line. They're bringing in 2 tight ends. Caserio played a huge role for them on game day, on the practice field, running drills, helping coach. And that's kind of Matt Patricia. He's kind of the do-it-all right now. He's in charge of the salary cap, and he was the one finalizing a lot of the contracts, which was Nick Caserio's job. Patricia had always been a sideline coach. Now he's up in the press box, helping out up there. And then you still see him on the practice field. Bill Belichick is always talking to Patricia and getting his attention and asking for his input. So Matt Patricia really is the new Nick Caserio. And we'll see how long it lasts. The Detroit Lions are still paying him for a couple of years. So I have a feeling that the Patriots, at minimum, will have him for a couple of years before they figure out their next move. But that's been an interesting decision by the Patriots to see how they've made Matt Patricia the new Nick Caserio.
Yeah, the Texans faced him last year in his last year with the Lions. So they'll see him again on Sunday, as well as many other familiar faces. It's always a reunion, but this year, obviously a different reunion. You've got Nick Caserio, you've got Marcus Cannon, you got Rex Burkhead, Brandon Cooks, who was here last year, and maybe Danny Amendola if he plays. So it should be a good one. What other storylines are you working on for this week, Ben?
Well, the Patriots, this is a huge must-win bounce-back game. They're 1-3 and cannot afford to go 1-4. And so I know this is a big game for the Texans as well. And the Patriots, for a must-win game, the offensive line, that's a huge story. The fact that there's a possibility they get Trent Brown back, and they really need him now that they might not have the left side of their line. So the offensive line and how they're dealing with it, to me, that's the big story of the week. And just how do the Patriots handle their emotions after a huge game last Sunday? Can they avoid the dreaded letdown? If this game were in Foxborough, I'd feel very good about it. But the fact that it's in Houston has me a little worried. So the Patriots, they have to win this game. They cannot go down to 1-4. They have to win this. So this is a huge game for them. And they're facing a team that, in Caserio and all those players you mentioned, they know them very well. So I have a feeling most of America is probably sleeping on this game, but it's probably going to be, I think, tougher for the Patriots than people are giving them credit for.
All right. I like it. Ben Volin, senior writer for the Boston Globe. Always appreciate the time, Ben, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, and go Texans. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell for new content.